All right. Thank you guys so much for coming back to another episode of the One More Idea podcast. This is Michael Moore here.
I'm Mike DeLuna.
And, we like to kick this off with a quote by Thomas Edison. He says, "I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that won't work. All he needed was that one more idea, that idea of breakthrough, that revelatory thing that's going to help him get from where he is to where he wants to be." And today, that's, with our ideas and everything that we share on our show, that's what we're hoping to help you guys with is get that idea that's out in the cosmos that maybe you haven't thought about yet, to shift your perspective, to give you hope, and to help you break through to the other side.
That's right. That's right. For sure. Awesome intro, man. And I just want to say that I absolutely enjoy these podcasts. And I had a friend that was asking me last week about, do you know any great motivational podcasts? And so I was like, absolutely. And I showed her.
Boy, do I.
I showed her ours, and she's a subscriber now. So thank you guys for all that's listening and sharing. And man, there's so much content that I think is touching so many people's lives. So keep watching, keep sharing, and let's keep touching people and growing. That's the name of the game. So
let me see. I'm gonna so why don't we do some blitz ideas, and then we'll go into the big idea today, which I believe is a really good. It's a big idea. It really is, and a lot of people. I just want to preface the big idea a little bit. Mm-hmm. You kind of hear this book. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad. Mm-hmm. Circulate in a lot of circles between self-help and financial guys and gurus, and even like when you're listening to certain people, if you've read the book, you'll hear things from the book. It's like this all-encompassing, just financial, piece of gold.
Yeah, so it really is.
So we will get to that later in the episode. But today, I just wanted to see, what motivational thoughts, tips, suggestions could we blitz the people with, man?
Yeah, I always go back to like the time of the year, being that, we've just concluded the first quarter of the year, of course. And, a lot of people kind of are gearing up for summer. Summer is a very busy time usually for everybody. I'm noticing that proms are going forward and graduation's coming up soon. And I cannot believe we're talking about that again, but it really is happening. So I always like to tell, when people are asking me from a coach's standpoint, like, what should I be doing now going into the summer and getting ready for, busier months and things. And I always like to say, like, spring cleaning, man, is a real deal. And spring cleaning is not only just for your house, but it's a good time to take a look at your goal sheet again and see what do you need to adjust on. Are you above your because in July, that's 6 months in the year, so are you on track to hit your goals? What do you need to change up on? What new books should you start reading now to get you prepared for? It's sort of like that, how farmers, and I love looking at farmers, how they operate, but, farmers are starting to prepare because, winter is not, it's far away per se, but it's not that far away. And so people are already starting to prepare for fall and winter as of now. And I know that's kind of hard to think about, but if you want your blessings to manifest in the fall and the summer or winter, what are you sowing now to get the end of the year to be exactly what you want? So it's never too early to start thinking about your half of your goals and your end of the year goal. So I would say my blitz idea is to pull out your goal sheets, even if it's tucked away somewhere that you hadn't seen it in 3 months, and it's not too late to start gaining some traction on those goals. So that's my number one idea.
I'd say a big idea is to do something. So many people, when you're stuck in a rut and you don't know what to do, just do something. That's
a good one.
And, especially like if you're overwhelmed and you feel like you just have so much to do, what's something easy that you can do like now? And like if you feel like there's this mountain of like things to do to like, accomplish to get to your goal, think about what are the easiest things that you can do, like that'll take less than 5 minutes. And then what I feel like begins to happen as you do those easier things, you're more in the mood and you're more inclined to do the harder tasks and the harder things because you have momentum going, and it's kind of like an avalanche. It doesn't happen, immediately. It starts with this small roll or a snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
Where it's this small roll and then it builds traction and then it keeps gaining snow and then all of a sudden, boom, it's this huge big ball and then maybe it causes an avalanche. But it's just like it starts with a small little token, a small little thing. And, maybe that's an idea from this podcast. Maybe, like if you have a really dirty house that you've just been really busy and can't seem to get it done, maybe just do one thing, like pick up the clothes and put them in the clothes hamper, make your bed, do the dishes. And then what you'll find is you start doing those small things, you'll tackle the big things. And that's kind of like my blitz idea is find like what's in front of you and focus on that. Like have a very small goal that's very achievable, like now, and only focus on that. Don't think about anything else, but only focus on that. And that's my blitz idea.
Yeah. And honestly, the last one that I was thinking about when we started talking about blitz ideas, it really is in line with what you're saying. And what that is like figure out what distractions you have currently, and then basically don't get distracted by those, because distractions can take you away from like exactly what Michael's saying. Like if you have that little thing that you need to knock out, but you're so distracted with stress or with like other things that you need to knock out. Like if you're that list type person, and I know a lot of people that they have to have a list, then there's nothing wrong with that. Like make a list of what you need to accomplish for the day and start, if you want to knock out the small ones and get them out of the way, or, if you have one big challenge that it just won't seem to go away, then hit it while your coffee is still kind of manifesting in you and knock it out, and then just knock out the rest of the list accordingly. But I just think that if you can see yourself accomplishing things throughout the day, then it does definitely give you some motivation to do it over and over. And eventually, like I've read so many books where they talk about, like The Slight Edge is a good one, where it talks about if you can do 1%, get 1% better every day, then by the end of the year, you're going to have looked back and been like, man, I accomplished so much. So I think my last tip is don't overlook the little things, because they definitely add up. And on the flip side of that, though, the negative little things can add up too. So if you're adding a soda a day, if you're adding a sweet roll every day, then it's going to add to your weight. If you're looking to lose weight, then maybe you should stop doing that. And so think about the small things, because they definitely do add up. And if you're working out, or if you're doing, burning more calories a day by jogging or walking, just know that it is going to add up, and it's going to add up in a positive way. So either good or bad, those small things, they do matter. So, yeah.
Well, big things are made up of little things.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of little things that intricately put together make up a bigger system, a bigger thing.
Absolutely.
So why don't we go ahead and transition? I wanted to throw one more blitz idea just because I'm thinking it. Think about know yourself, know thyself, right? Because, if you know what motivates you, do that. For me, it's listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
It's finding that small little achievable goal and doing that. That's what motivates me. Those are the things that motivate me. But every person's different. And I know another thing that motivates me typically, this is kind of like putting like logs on the fire, right? For me is exercising. When I'm exercising consistently, it just motivates me. It just gets me in the mood to be productive, especially first thing in the morning. It just but that's me. That might not be you.
Yeah.
So I think maybe some people, I know if they make a list, that motivates them. They see it before them. When they mark something out of it, that motivates them more.
Yeah.
But you just got to know yourself and know, like, what are those things that can get you out of a slump? So
that's a good one, man. That's definitely knowing yourself is really important, and being completely transparent with yourself too, because like we can pretend like things are well in front of friends and family, but only really the struggles and challenges that you have. So man, write those down, cross them out. If that gets you motivated, then so be it. Some people, they're self-starters and they don't need a list. They're just like, I know this is what I need to do, and they do it. Whatever is your system, like, I mean, keep doing it, but do something. I think the best aha out of all of this was Michael said, do something. So it's so true. Action creates, emotion creates action, and action can get you to the next level. So that's a really good tip.
Yeah, so the book is called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is the big idea here.
Yeah.
And I'd forgotten that I had it on Audible until a friend brought it up to me. He was like, man, have you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And I said, you know what? I just remembered that I have it on Audible, and I was going to listen to it. So I went back and started listening to it again. And it's just like all these truths and nuggets, and it's a different perspective. So I'm not through with the whole book yet, but I just want to give you guys kind of some nuggets that I've gotten along the way. And it's one of those books, like, you're going to get something as soon as you start reading it.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as, like, first 2 pages, you're going to get something. Maybe even the first line. Like, you're going to get something immediately. I love those kinds of books because it's almost like watching a movie that starts off great.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's kind of hard every now and then when you get a technical book or something that's just like a really slow startup. They have to build all the foundation and stuff. But so anyways, just with like the first couple of chapters, here's a couple of things for you guys to think about that we'll dive into. Make your money work for you. Don't work for your money. And the second thing, make your thinking control your emotion. Don't let your emotion control your thinking. The next one is be honest with yourself and why you are working in the first place. And then the last thing that I want us to land on and unpack is ask yourself, am I driven in doing everything because of fear? Like fear of paying bills, fear of safety and security. Like I have to make money and I'm driven to make money out of fear. Fear of like things in the world, or is there a better way? Ask yourself, like, with the money that you're making and everything that you're doing, and I love that he put it like this. If you feel like you need to make more money, like your money keeps running out. And in this book, he talks a lot about his rich dad and his poor dad. Yeah. And his rich dad is actually not his dad, like it's his friend's dad. And his friend's dad decides to he's talking to his friend about money and stuff like that. And him and his friend decide they want to make money. So they talk to his rich dad, which is his friend's dad, about making money. Right. And he actually tells them, I'll teach you, but the best lesson is not actually in the classroom, like what you do at school. I'm going to teach you by hiring you. And he even goes as far as to I don't want to spoil the book because I do want you guys to get it and read it and support the author because he's amazing. Yeah. But he's like, pretty much like you guys can start now. And he says, but I have a baseball game. Well, I mean, do you want to learn? Do you want to, and he even gives up playing because the truth he's trying to teach them is that you can either play or you can work. And there's just so much to unpack from this book. Too many things to list out. But the first thing, make your money work for you. Don't work for your money. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah. So, that leads me to, another book that Robert Kiyosaki wrote, and it's called the Cash Flow Quadrant. And I don't want to mix both, but there's relevance in what you just asked me, because in the Cash Flow Quadrant, he references Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because he said that his real dad, and a lot of our parents and maybe grandparents, they have this mindset of go to school, get a job, build up a 401k, retire, and basically travel the world or do what you want to do when you're 65. And so in the cash flow quadrant, it talks a lot about, if you can just imagine an X, and like he breaks it down to where you have the E stands for employers, and most people they're an employer. They just work for somebody. And even if it's like in our area, the plants provide a lot of support for employees. And so maybe they work at the plant for most of their life and they retire, and it's good money. So they're comfortable. They're okay. They're providing for their family. But on the other opposite side, which is where only 5% of people dwell, is big business owners. And then below that is investors. And so I want to touch on that because the question is, what do you think about money working for you? And the truth is the only way that you can leverage money and the only way you can make more of it without you actually physically having to go trade, time for money, which means you're going to work, is to have solid investments that are making money for you. So, I teach about real estate investments, and and we have great people that are even in the church that teach about like securities and stocks and bonds and things like that. And in his book, a lot of his books, he teaches the ABCs of investing. And so, there's a reason why he starts off with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then leads into all these other books that talk about how you can make money work for you. But not to spoil the book, like Michael said, or not to even dive into another book that he wrote, I just want to say this. Like, if you're looking to live the lifestyle that you want to live, you've got to find a way to have your money working for you. And this is not necessarily a financial podcast, because there's other people that are probably way better at that than I am. But I will say this: if you're not good at it, and you are chasing money, and you are working 9 to 5 and can't seem to get out of that rat race, then talk to someone that specializes in helping you make your money work for you. And like we always say, we always talk about mentorship. Like, so find somebody that you admire that is doing it at a high level, and just ask them, hey, what are you putting your money in? What stocks are really working for you? What are you a real estate investor, and how did you get started in that? And ask those questions, because you'll be surprised that where you're at right now, you can start small. Like, you don't have to have $1 million to invest. So I feel like that's the only way to go, is to have your money, or else you're going to be chasing money your whole life. So anyway.
Yeah, and it goes against, like you said, everything that we're taught.
Yeah.
Because he even teaches the boys. The first lesson that he teaches them when he's working for, like, I don't know, 30 cents or something like that, an hour. Yeah. And I think is what it was, or a day or something. It was like not a lot.
Yeah, it was really low. So
he was doing all this work, and he decides, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not making enough money. I'm going to quit. And he's telling his friend, and his friend's like, my dad knew that you would get to this point, and he said whenever you do, to let him know, and he'll meet with you. So he goes to his friend's dad's office, and he sees all these people ahead of him waiting to talk to his dad, and he has to wait like 45 minutes or something, if not more. And then finally he gets to meet with him, and then it come to the end of the story, to just kind of bottom line it. His dad, the lesson that he wanted to teach him is that you're no different than the adults that I hired too, because they feel the same way. I've heard the same exact things that you're telling me right now. And then he goes on to say, well, it's just not right. It's unfair. And, we need to tell the government that you're treating your employees unfairly. And he says, now you sound like the people that I fire, because he was just like really just passionately getting into it with his friend's dad. But the truth that he was trying to teach him is that you have to think differently. Is there a different way? Is there a better way? And I think, even to take it a step further, a lesson that he taught him after that is, now I want you guys to work for me for free, which was even like, I'm telling you, this book just really challenges perspectives. And then after they did that for a little while, the kid didn't even want to tell his dad about it, because he was like, man, my dad just won't understand this, because he's teaching them such a different perspective. Yeah. And, we talk about the 9 to 5, we beat up old, Billy Joe working at the plant all the time. Yeah. But it's because it's ingrained so deeply inside of us to think a certain way, to act a certain way, and it's driven by emotion. So when he sits down, he knows that, like, they're starting to get frustrated with him because they're working for free. They're not even getting paid. And he sits down with them, and the first thing he does is, he gives them ice cream sandwiches, I think, or something like that. Yeah. But then he says, how about I pay you 25 cents an hour. I give you a 25-cent an hour raise. And they're both like, no. And then he keeps gradually going up till finally he gets to $5, which at that point in time, like, that's what adults make. Yeah. And he was like, okay, what's the catch? And he was trying to get them to make a decision based on fear. And that's really what it all came down to, is that, a lot of people are driven by fear, like we talked about earlier, fear to pay their bills. Yeah. Fear that their money will run out. They won't have enough money. Fear that something will happen with their car and they won't have the money to pay for it. Fear that, they'll get sick and they'll need the money to do that. And he's really, like I said, it's a great book, and I can't even get to the point, but I can't find the words to explain it really. Yeah. But it's really just this perspective that, we have to look differently at money. We can't, if we want something better, better. We have to do something better than what we've been doing. And we talk about all the time, like, you can't change your problems with the same thinking you use to create them.
Yeah.
And what comes to my mind is residual income. Like, what can you do right now? Like, can you, in my mind, I'm always like, well, can I do both?
Yeah.
Can I do the job that I have right now and do another job somehow? If I want it to be better, if I want to have a better way, and I believe I'm going to be the kind of person who has multiple streams of income, and I already have side hustles that I can do, but the thing that I'm most attracted to with this book and the place that I've reached in life is like, what are those things that I can do that I can set on autopilot and go focus on another project?
Yeah.
Maybe create a new business, sell that or manage that, put it on autopilot, move on to the next project, fix that, manage that, get that working to where it needs to be, move on to the next project, and that's kind of where my mind is, and kind of what I'm getting from this book is like residual income.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like pyramid marketing, like a pyramid scheme or whatever.
Yeah.
Like truly like something like, and it could be investments, but I think there's other ways that you can invest your money and your time and your resources besides just investments too. If you have skills, if you have things that you can do, like I'm starting this food truck business, and I'm sure later on down the road, like one thing I've been thinking about doing just as an idea of, residual income is like B-stock, like reselling stuff that people have returned to the stores. A lot of times they have them on a pallet and you can just take it and buy it in bulk and then turn around and sell it online, like to places like Amazon and like drop shipping and stuff like that. There's a whole world of like different opportunities, and sometimes you're more just the middle person. They just need the middle person, and you can get paid to be that middle person. So kind of rabbit trailed quite a bit there.
No, that's good stuff, man.
Here's something I wanted to go into is like, make your thinking control your emotion. And what that, like, the bottom line of that to me is that, be responsive, don't be reactive. So many people, when a situation happens, they immediately react to it instead of like taking a step back and responding to it with a well thought out, response. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's real powerful, because like a lot of times, and man, we're just emotional beings, very emotional. And like if somebody, cuts you off on the road, like a lot of times we just jump out of our skin and like just anger and things like that. And I think one thing that I've always been taught by people that have to make really hard decisions is that a lot of times you step away from it, because if you make a decision out of anger, or make a decision, and usually if you make a decision out of anger, it's going to be pretty bad because you're fueling it with a negative, force or whatnot. But I remember in college, I had a professor that would tell me that if you're upset and you're typing an email or you're about to leave a voicemail, to type the email but don't hit send, and then walk away from it and come back later on and read that email again. And if you still feel the same way, then hit the send button. But usually, and I've done this even now in business, usually after you come back, you're going to see that email is not what you don't want to send. That it's all out of character. It's all emotion. It's not even really relevant. And there's times where someone said something to me and I immediately want to snap back on a text message, and then I just stop and take a deep breath and I say, it's not worth me getting out of character for, because someone seems to be upset. I don't know why they're upset. I don't know what type of morning or day they've had. So it's taken a lot, but I've learned that the best way to make decisions is without the emotion. And there's only one or two ways you can detach from it, but one way is just to walk away from it for a second. Like, you don't have to address every single issue while you're emotional. And it could even be a good emotion. Like you could have literally inherited a ton of money and then you're looking to go spend it, like go shopping. I mean, that you might need to take a step back from that, because you're like, man, what if I really probably should save a majority of this or invest it instead of just going to blow it all at wherever people, Amazon or the mall or whatever. So I think emotion is good, but when it comes down to make decisions, I think you have to absolutely make the decision based on the truth and the facts and not just your feelings, because your feelings can be right and your feelings can be wrong. But the other problem with that is that other people, that you're making decisions for, like if you lead a company, if you lead a household, if you lead a church or whatever you're leading, those other people might not feel the same way you feel. So that's another issue. That's why there's committees and board of directors and things like that, because one person doesn't always have the answers. So I would just say with emotion, you have to be very careful, because it can lead you the wrong way, and then it'll cause a small problem to be a really big problem. Because and the biggest emotion we've been talking about all day of the lack of making decisions, or maybe you make them because of this, is fear. Like, fear has to be out of the equation when you're thinking about what your future is going to look like, because fear will make you make a lot of wrong choices, and sometimes fear will make you make choices that's very safe for you. And sometimes safe is not what you need. You need a calculated risk for you to reap a really big reward. But the fear will stop you from doing that sometimes. So
here's a couple of things. The first thing is I want to recommend a book, because we're talking about ideas here. And there's a really, really, really great book for relationships called Keep Your Love On by Danny Silk. And I'll say it again. It's called Keep Your Love On. And I'll say it one more time. It's called Keep Your Love On. And he talks about this idea that people are either driven by fear or they're driven by love.
Oh, wow. That's good.
And he dives really deep into what happens when you're driven by one or the other in relationships. So I just wanted to drop that nugget. If you're driven by fear in relationships, a lot of times you want to run away when certain things happen because you're afraid. And you put people in a cage, and then you prod them and poke them and control them because you're afraid that if you don't control them, they'll hurt you. So a lot of people who are really controlling and possessive in relationships do that out of fear. Now, when they're driven by love, they say to their self and the person that they're in a relationship with, whether it's friendship, family, whatever, they say, you know what? Even if you'll hurt me, I'll still pursue you. That's a person who's driven by love. Even if there's a chance, and I'm not talking about abuse, okay? I'm talking about the chance that, like, maybe you're going to share a truth that might sting a little bit, but because I love you, I'm going to pursue you. I'm not going to be driven by the fear of what may or may not happen.
That's right.
So that book is really revelatory.
You know what? Let me interject real quick. I was going to tell you something, a nugget of wisdom that I received. I just finished reading a book, The Big Leap, and there was something that jumped out at me on that. It said he broke down something. He said, "Do you know why people argue?" And I was like, I'm curious, because I mean, I rarely argue. I'm pretty. I take the high road usually, or sometimes I have to walk away from a tense situation, but I was like, no, I wonder why people argue. So I kept reading, and it said that most people that are argumentative, they usually play the victim role, right? And then what they do is when you argue, you're trying to persuade the other person that you're more of the victim than the other person. And if you stop and think about it, if the spouse starts an argument with you, and then you turn back and say, wait a minute. Wait, I know you're not saying this about me. What about you? So what you're trying to do is show that, no, you're not the victim. I'm the victim here. You're the one that started this argument, not me. And when two people are trying to persuade themselves that they're the victim, that can go on for an eternity, including a whole marriage that ultimately will end in a plane crash. So remember that next time when something seems to be tense, is that, are you going to be the victim or are you going to be the victor? And say, listen, I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail with you. You're not a victim. You're better than that. Like, you almost can start coaching that person out of being a victim, because it's a mindset. Just like the fear mindset. It's a mindset. It's a fear, and the biggest fear that we have is a fear of scarcity. We sometimes feel like there's not enough for us. We feel like sometimes that, man, there's not enough money in the world to where I have to hold on to these pennies. Like, I can't invest them because I'm scared if I lose them, then what am I going to do to feed my family? Like, there is so much of an abundance in this world. Like, there's so much money out there to where, I want to say that if the government gave everybody I want to say it was like $1 billion almost, then everybody can have $1 billion and there's still money left over. So if you feel like you're living a scarcity, like you have a scarcity mindset, that's just fear tugging on you. You don't have to live. There's so much more out there that you'd be surprised. There's an endless amount of love. There's an endless amount of money. There's an endless amount of whatever resource you feel is limited. there's an endless amount of it. You just have to know that and believe that enough to go get your portion of it. So I just wanted to take that little deviation, because argument is just a victim trying to convince you that they're more of a victim than you are.
So there's also an endless amount of ideas.
There you go.
To be discovered.
There you go.
You know,
yeah.
And I read a book, and basically, long story short, it was this guy in a place of like ideas. It was like a huge idea warehouse, and he's walking around asking the guide or whatever, "Hey, what is all this stuff?" And he said, "Oh, these are all the inventions and the discoveries that have been left undiscovered. Like, people haven't discovered these yet."
Wow.
It's like cures for disease. It's cures for cancer. It's like world hunger cures. It's you know, automobiles, it's clothes, it's financial discoveries, it's, you know, and little gizmos and gadgets and things that can help people, you know, and it's all these things that are left undiscovered. So it's a really cool idea, and I fully believe that there's, you know, so much still left to be discovered and invented.
I agree, man.
So here's a thought I wanted to throw at you, and maybe this could be our closing, you know, can that we open up.
Sure.
Money is a mirage. It's a delusion.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about that in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm just curious, you know, what your thoughts are on that.
So it's funny you brought that up. For those out there, if you want to hear something that absolutely will change your whole mind, it did me, is I listened to a commencement speech from Steve Jobs, who is probably one of the most brilliant people that ever walked this planet, and one of the richest people that ever walked this planet. And I have an Apple product here and multiple Apple products, so I mean, he still resonates with me to this day. But my boss and I were talking, and we brought that speech up, and I don't remember if he was at Stanford or it was one of the Ivy League colleges, and he was giving that commencement speech at their graduation. And he at the time, he knew that he had limited time left because he was sick. He had a liver transplant and different things where his health started taking a toll at that time. But he delivered what I think was probably one of the most impactful speeches that I've ever heard anybody speak. And he talks about different things. Like, he talked about how he was adopted, and he was supposed to be adopted by almost the same thing we're talking about, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He was going to be adopted by a rich family, and he would not have to want for anything in the world. And what happened was he was adopted by a different family where it wasn't what he thought it was going to turn out to be. He talked about Apple. He got fired at Apple, and he said it was the best thing that he could have did because it pushed him to invent another company that Apple ended up buying, and it brought him back to Apple as their CEO. And then he talked about love. And let me just say this, out of all that, man, this gives me chills just thinking about this. Out of everything he said, he started saying this. He said, why do people fear taking a leap of faith whenever death is something that is part of life? Like, we're all going to die. He said, no one has evaded that. Like, if you're a believer, Jesus died. So all of us are going to die. And he said, if you know you're going to die, then why do you live life so reserved where the end result is going to be the same for all of us? But what really struck me strong in this speech is that he never talked about how much money he had, and he never talked about at the end of his life, the most important thing is that I'm a gazillionaire. He talked about all the relationships he had, all the obstacles he overcame, and he gave such a motivating speech about how these young people are basically taking over for people because death kind of cleanses the planet and it makes room for new people. Man, that puts a perspective that if you're not adding value to someone else through all the things you've gone through, the challenges you've dealt with, and not just talk about finances or think, I got to make more money. I really think from a billionaire standpoint, and people can say, yeah, but he was a billionaire. He didn't have to want for anything. But it didn't buy him extra time on this planet. He couldn't pay for, he had the best health care in the world, and he still died. So money, what is money in the first place? I mean, if you think about it, this man was talking about something that's way more powerful than any money on this planet. And that is the fact that we have the ability to earn, yes, but it all comes from this. Ideas. And to me, the best thing that we own as humans is the fact that we can communicate with each other, that we can love each other, and that we can get ideas from each other, whether it's an idea of not to do that or whether it's an idea like Edison, like I'm not going to quit because I'm going to find 10,000 ways that don't work until I find that one that does. Man, to me, you can teach somebody, read Rich Dad Poor Dad. This person can teach you how to make money, can teach you how to invest it to where it works for yourself. But when is enough? Like, what if you have $1 million or $1 billion? What are you going to do with it? The question is like, are you making money for yourself, or are you making money to change the world? And if you don't have a desire to change the world, that's totally up to you. But there are some people out there that want to be an immense blessing to other people, and you can't do it if you're broke. I mean, I'm just saying, like I can say I'm gonna pray for you, but it's better if I'm gonna pray for you and I give you $10,000 because I have it. I'm just saying, money is a tool to be used for good. It's not the good itself, and it's not bad or good. It depends on what you do with it. But if you can go back, just Google Steve Jobs, speech to, I think it was Stanford, but it pops up on every YouTube. I mean, if you just type in his speech, it'll pop up. Watch that speech. It's probably 10 minutes long, and it's probably the best speech I've heard. And that will put life in perspective for anybody out there. Seriously.
That was great. That's kind of a mic drop moment.
Yeah, yeah.
But one thing I wanted to bring up is, like, if we take away, like, there was a TV show that I watched in the past where there was like a giant EMP or whatever that like got rid of all the electricity on the planet.
Yeah.
And they had to go back to like different means of living.
Yeah.
And it was just so interesting to think, like, what would it be like to live in that day and age? You couldn't use money like you do now. You couldn't use a credit card.
Nope.
Cash doesn't work, because there's really no currency. The currency changes, and it's like, what skills do you have? What do you have to offer? How can you, like, what goods and services do you have? Well, they started like planting food, harvesting like animals and food, and, having like some people who may have been teachers before, they taught now. And like in exchange, like, we have goods and services that we exchange, that we barter,
Right.
So that's where my mind's always like kind of been, is like the bartering system. I think it is a much, much greater way of doing things than currency, just personally. Because, like, let's say, we may not always have money, but what I always do have is my skill set. I can play music.
Yeah.
I can work for you. I can, build something for you. I can, cook for you. And that's where my mind is like, okay, we're driven so much by money. This, like, delusional piece of paper that, like, the paper itself, what does it represent? It just represents time. It just represents like a credit that I have paid my time to get paid for my time. Like, it's just something that represents, like, not necessarily always a skill set or anything, but it's like, it's kind of a deep thought. But, like with my uncle, I've kind of exercised this quite a bit. My uncle was like, hey, how much do you want me to pay you for helping me with my rent house? And I said, well, how about instead of paying me, how about you get me some sessions with your mentor?
Right. Yeah.
Because he's connected with him. He can set it up. And I'm sure the mentor hooked him up and gave him a really good deal and didn't make him pay quite as much as he would other people.
Right.
So one of the best, and I actually heard Grant Cardone say this, one of the best investments you can make is in yourself.
Oh, man.
Because at the end of the day, what do you have to offer the world? Kind of like you're saying.
Yeah.
And money is great. Money is a tool. Money is, a cool thing that can help you or whatever.
Yeah.
But it can also be a bad thing, because if all you're pursuing is money and money is your safety, I do think that you need to challenge that. Is there a better way? Is there a better way, instead of only pursuing money for the sake of having money, for the sake of getting more money, for the sake of having safety because you have money? Like, there can be safety in other things, like your health. There can be safety in, like, you can exercise, and exercising in and of itself, making good choices, to eat the right things. Those are things that can impact you way more beyond just money, So anyways, the
Wow.
last quote or meme is actually a meme that I wanted to share. When it feels scary to jump, that is exactly when you jump. Otherwise, you end up staying in the same place your whole life. So
Yeah.
I think that's such a great truth for people to explore because, like we're talking about different perspectives. We're talking about things that challenge, the status quo, which is what Steve Jobs always talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I wanted to go against the grain. I wanted to go against like what people typically did.
Yeah.
But it can be scary.
Oh, yeah.
It can be scary to do that. Like we see this airplane.
Yeah.
It can be scary to take that leap. But if you don't, you're going to be stuck doing the same thing you've always done.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and I can attest to this because I remember there was a moment with the food truck where that I'm starting the food trailer with the whole business where I was kind of like, my friend explained it like looking over the edge of a cliff. And there was no way, like if I made that decision to jump, there's no way to go back. It's like all down the cliff from there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot hanging on that decision that I have to come up with finances, with resources, figure out how to do things. But, if I didn't make that jump, I'd potentially be doing the same thing. I would never know.
Yeah.
I would never know 10 years from now if I didn't make that jump. At some point, I would never know what it would look like. And to you guys out there,
Yeah, it's powerful, man.
that may be your one more idea is to make that jump. What is that thing that you're just like right there and you're just so afraid, that word that we're talking about?
Yeah.
Are you driven by your emotion, which that's fear, or are you driven by like a calculated risk, like knowing like, well, if it tanks, I at least know I can fall back on this. And even if I can't, like, I know I'll get through it. I just like know, maybe it's time to rely a little bit on faith.
Yeah, I heard Grant, you brought up Grant. I heard Grant Cardone on a sales call one time say something that is so powerful when you're making a decision because honestly, man, you're not guaranteed, even if you take this calculated risk that we're talking about, you're not guaranteed anything. You're not guaranteed it's going to work. You're not guaranteed it's going to fail. But Grant says that you need to have a parachute on your back, jump off a cliff with the idea that it might not open. I thought that was pretty powerful because, obviously that's a little extreme, but man, you have to take calculated risks and then do it and not know what the results are going to be. Cause you can sit back and say, I don't know, man, I think I'm more comfortable here. But what if your purpose is something different that you were just a little too afraid to try? And so I think you should jump off with the parachute and not know what the end result's going to be, but just know that, if you're continuing to invest in yourself, the likeliness of something working is a lot stronger than if you didn't read the book or you didn't have the mentor and then you jump out there without, I would never go, skydiving without a mentor or somebody strapped to me the first few times you do it. You know what I mean? So it's calculated risk, but a risk is meant for you to do it and not know what the results are going to be. But most of the time, well, not most of the time, probably all the time, all these autobiographies I've read of top people, the Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, they all took calculated risk and look at where they're at now. Obviously, Steve Jobs is not here, but all the stuff he did to build his business was one risk after another. But it looked like it was so easy because he took those leaps. He predicted that Apple would have a device that all of us would have. Basically, if it's not a computer, it's an iPhone. And now you walk around and everybody has smartphones. That's a guy's vision that came to pass because he was not scared to take a leap of faith. So I'll close with this. What idea do you have that you've been thinking about forever and ever that could potentially change the planet, but you've just hadn't had the right investors, hadn't had the right mentor, or you're just too scared to initiate it? What if you did? Like, what if you did? What if today you said, you know what, that idea, after hearing this podcast, I'm going to jump. I'm doing it full-fledged. What would happen? What would happen if 6 months from now your idea leads to a cure for cancer or something to that effect? Who knows what your research or your mindset, has to offer the world, and you've got to get past the fear of doing it. So anyway, just do it like Nike says. Just do it.
Yeah, and as we close this out, sometimes in just the action alone of doing it, you learn, how to tweak it. But if you can't even get to that point if you don't ever do it.
Yeah.
And very much so, whenever you make that jump, there's going to be some tweaks. Because most people don't nail it. There are some people who always seem to land on their feet. But I would imagine those people, they never stop. It's like, okay, I'm doing this. Oh, this isn't really working. Now I'm doing this. Oh, this isn't really working. Now I'm doing this. Oh, it's working. Not working. Hitting a wall. Doing this, tweaking it. And there's this constant push and pull. I've seen this so much just in my life where there's a constant taking a step back, tweaking, changing, altering, moving forward, tweaking, action, but it's consistent with action.
Well, can I add something, Michael? If me and you jumped in a car today and we're going to drive to Houston, do we drive in the same lane all the way to Houston?
We don't.
Okay, but we're still going to Houston, right? The destination is there, but we're shifting lanes the whole way there. That's your life, man. That's your life. Your destination is there, but how you get there, sometimes you have to change lanes, man. Sometimes a car's going too slow in front of you. You got to go around it. I mean, sometimes there's a blowout and you got to kind of hit your brakes. So just remember that, man. Let that vision of you taking a drive and you're not in the same lane, but you're still going there. So changing lanes is what this is about, man. We're trying to throw you some ideas to help you kind of navigate through that. So anyway, that's all I got, man.
Yeah, well, we always say we cannot change our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. That's Albert Einstein. And I really think he was onto something with that, because that's what this podcast is all about. It's about changing our thinking, getting a different shift in our thinking, getting into a different gear, getting into a different lane, and knowing how we can take that next step with one more idea. That's going to help us have that breakthrough. So we hope that you guys had a great time listening to this. I know this is a great episode. And, we'll catch you guys again with our next episode of the One More Idea podcast.
Bye, everybody.